Yeah. Did you get to see much of the film just then?
No, I've seen it a couple of times. No, but I like the idea that you've seen it before.
I have seen it, but not for a long time. I realised that when I was watching a lot of bits that I'd forgotten about.
Well, that's what was so curious about it, because hopefully, I mean, it's 40 years old, this film. But, and the last time I saw it was about 9 or 10 months ago. And although I say it, I wondered, it seemed to say up to date with the time I was living 9 months ago. You know, it wasn't an old story for me, which I thought was quite. I'm rather pleased with this screening, because I can ask if it seems like an old story to a young audience. You know?
Yeah, well, yeah, actually, that's true. Do you think? Because I was thinking that, like, when he's watching all the tellies and he's really kind of getting bombarded by all this stuff, that happens to us on a daily basis, doesn't it? Do you think? I thought it's kind of a modern film in that way, yeah.
I mean, we tried when we were shooting it, we tried to think slightly ahead, not impossibly ahead, but slightly ahead. And one found that extraordinary things like the telephone, you know, a sequence with the telephone. We had a sequence like that. Cut it out because it was dating it, and now you can think, if you see a sequence with a telephone conversation and it's dated, complete now, you know. And so it was quite interesting trying to avoid any possible dating of the piece. You know, you can't obviously do it completely, but the bit that I've just seen, you know, it seemed to have the same quality. Curious enough, on the way here, I don't know what they were there for, but there were, round about Regent Street, there were hundreds of Father Christmases. It was quite, but seeing this, the last was a Father Christmas going out in the street. I mean, I'm not talking about a few people, streets of it.
Maybe that's it. Whilst we've been here in East London, London's been taken over by, yeah, evil Father Christmases. This is the last place of safety.
I like it. I think we'll shoot it.
Have we got enough food to survive?
Okay.
But, no, but it was strange watching it with that Christmas tree at the side there. And like you say, there's the Christmassy bit. But there's a kind of a Christ-like quality to the story, you know, someone who comes and he's given, it seems like he brings these inventions which are, and there's like that stuff about, you know, people can't handle it, there's too much, you're giving them too much, you know, you should kind of drip feed it a bit more. Was that in your mind at all, that it was kind of almost like a biblical kind of story?
Well, no, I don't think it was that so much, but it was certainly with the dressing of the set, and again I come back to the same thing, you know, that I wanted it not to be so obviously a man who fell to earth, who came to earth, you know, but who knows? I mean, the actual structure we're living in anyway, you know, in terms of our lives and our buildings and oceans, and it's an era used to be a much longer thought pattern, had a longer thought pattern than it does today. You know, I mean, time has changed. Our attitude towards time has changed. You know, people and judgments on things. You know, like, I mean, just today on the news there was a thing that should we be taking fish out of the northern oceans? You know, that live 30 feet below the surface, and that's not right. Well, they wouldn't have dreamt of that, but you know, a few years ago, you know, just comparatively, and I think we're going through a period of time, an era that things are completely opening up for our understanding of life and the future, and I think it's quite exciting.
Yeah, well, there's a line in the film which you used as a title for your recent book, "The World is Ever Changing," and
yeah, but the difference is that at one time we look back on time and it was ever changing, but it's very fast now. You know, the changes that are happening are much faster than, you know, parents can't expect that their children will grow up and follow them in their ideas of the tradition of the established world, you know, that they're going to be far ahead of the time. I noticed it the other day with a grandson of my wife's, and they were round and having tea, and she'd bought a train set for him. I think it was 7 or 6.5, 7, and he sat doing the train thing and put it together and was concentrating. But I thought, so I imagine doing that at 12 or 15, but at 7, you know, figuring out this piece, checking it, and I think it's happening. So the whole attitude towards family life and everything is changing at tremendous speed. You know, what took an era of time, it was 100 years going to, and then the peak of that era, and then it was drifted down again to another. But now, you know, you've seen it in shops. They don't give guarantees much anymore, do they? You've seen the guarantee go from a 5-year guarantee. You know, you think you're a lunatic. It's got a guarantee with it, but take it out.
Sounds like you've been doing your Christmas shopping today, haven't you?
Yeah. No, I'm waiting till the desperation. I'm going to help them empty the shop.
I think we have to talk about David Bowie in this film. And
he had a big evening last night, didn't he?
Did he?
Yeah, there was on radio and television.
Oh, right, yeah, that film, five years, where it takes...
That's right.
Yeah. There's an interesting bit in your book where it seems that like some of the producers of the film were saying, well, is he going to be able to carry the film? Is he going to be able to do the part? And it's a good quote from yourself saying, well, how does an alien act? Who's going to know whether he's playing an alien very well?
They scratched their head when I said,
But you must have been... I mean, did you have to kind of direct him a lot?
Well, no, I think it would have been, you know, I wanted something that he found. I wouldn't have liked to have criticized. Well, that was the thing. That was the case that came up. Was that one of the associate producers, we came up from Hollywood and was watching the rushes and things. And as you say, said, I don't know about the performance, Nick. You know, we must keep our eye on that because it seems a bit strange. You know, and I said, yeah, well, I guess it is. You know, that. But if I'd thought, I never even told David that. You know, that because it was a brilliant piece of non-human acting, you know, laughing. We just thought, hey, listen, I see these people, they're laughing at curious lines that he could... It's like anything, a foreign language, you know, you don't quite know the subtleties of your own language, or their language, you know. And, I mean, I wanted to have him... Yeah, well, he laughed at the joke, but ha, ha, ha. and like,
well, it's like he's learnt everything from watching it on TV. He kind of parrots emotions, doesn't he? But it's like he hasn't got the actual emotion in him.
Right.
He knows that's how a human being is supposed to act.
Yeah, I think we all do that, mind you.
Yeah, we'd all do that a little bit, yeah. I wonder whether people in the audience have got questions that they'd like to ask. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to do this. Maybe I could wander amongst you with this microphone, and then you could... Shall I do that? That sounds professional, doesn't it? If you'd like to ask a question on any aspect of this film or any of Nick's work, put your hand up, and I will come and put this microphone near you. Only trouble is I can't actually see very well because of this light in the eye.
You want to turn the light round?
No. What? You can't start directing in here.
Cut along.
Let me come. Oh, you've got a mic there. Oh, this is going to get very complicated sound-wise.
Just sticking with David Bowie for a second, what about the scene in church where he's singing badly? Did you have a conversation about him not really being able to sing? Because I quite like that.
Oh, when he's singing Jerusalem in the church, yeah. Was that his idea? Did you say to him, sing out tune, or was that his idea?
I can't remember the 40 years ago.
Let me refresh your memory, right? So
let's just say I did.
So Mary Lou's trying. It's quite early on in their relationship, and Mary Lou is trying to kind of have a bit of an all-American thing.
I can't remember the off-stage conversation, except that I'm sure I made the. It was my idea.
All right. That's all we need.
There's a lot of booze in the film.
There is a lot of boozing in it.
Is there? Let me think.
Yeah, well, just drink is there all the time. I mean, is that because he comes to the planet, he's looking for water, and then alcohol, he's drinking it, it's kind of wet, but it doesn't really do good things to him?
That's why he wanted to stay on Earth.
To get wasted?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't have this up there.
But I was thinking that was like he got kind of corrupted on the way. It's like he came for a reason.
Well, yeah, I think you're absolutely that. I mean, he was engulfed by that made the crossover in terms of the storyline from human being to extraterrestrial. That's a mixture that happens with the examples on Earth. We have a completely different and absorbing attitude between foreigners. We used to say foreigners that start on the other side of the channel, English Channel. That it was a completely different attitude of going abroad. Everybody, it's so ordinary. You wouldn't say, we went to France over the weekend. We wouldn't have gone over the weekend. Had a week in France, and people say they must be strange people. You have a good time there. But foreign things. Well, I mean that's. So he was from another planet. I've often been from another planet, haven't you? But that's an attitude that, he wasn't playing a human being, so the right and wrong way of doing things, or being ashamed of things, or if you come from another type of education and living, then but didn't want it in a mad way, trying to be. I thought his performance was extraordinary that way, that it was. We're seeing that attitude very much, aren't we, now, in this era of time. They're rather concerned that too many foreigners, what they call foreigners, are getting into the country. Well, that's the way it's going to be, it's absorbing, because of the cell phones and things. I mean, they're advancing at a terrific rate of behavior pattern. Our behavior pattern is changing astoundingly. I mean, we see it. I won't go into it now, but you see it in what's done and what's not done. People are becoming much more secretive, curious enough, because they're a bit confused about what would be acceptable, jokes and things. Nobody talks about Shorty, come here, Ginger, that gets sued if you said that. But attitudes, change, and that I think we must have pressed some the right buttons, because the changing attitude is in the movie. When we were doing it, we didn't think it would be so immediate and so big a change. It burst through, which happens very much. It's happened before in terms of the whole controlling thing of wars before, went from the bow and arrow to a shotgun bang, and then it was, attitudes were different. I was looking through an old book I had when I was a boy called Believe It or Not. There used to be a thing,
a bit like
a cartoon in a,
Oh, like Ripley's Believe It or Not.
Ripley, exactly.
Yeah.
Where they showed a little biplane, little tiger moth, and said, believe it or not, this hasn't got a pilot in it. It's controlled by a radio and
and that we're used to that now. Amazon are going to have those to deliver all the Christmas presents, aren't they? See that? They said they're going to have these weird planes. What can you remember? How did you come to? Did you read the book of that the film was made from? How did the story come to your attention?
So I was sent the book, and then I'm sure you understand that it's curious. We all read things, and out of that's part of the chapter. A chapter in a book can change a whole attitude, can't it? And towards it and the realities. And oddly enough, well, luckily, that's where a lot of luck comes, because I liked. I couldn't explain now what I liked about the book, but I liked things in it, because it's too long-winded a thing. But I liked it enough not to want to do it exactly like that, because that's only one way of expressing thoughts, and on the page, it's rather like describing someone's expression, but that is like that on the screen, because you just have a shot of the girl going, and you read the visual, don't you? You read the visual, and so it's very difficult when you're translating a book to film, because the premise that you like, I like the idea of the premise of the thing. Man from another planet comes accidentally, crash, however, but he becomes human. And then the comparison of that's as big a difference he was as different as something that we see so often, just like a drawing of someone that moves like that, and a face with eyes on the top of his head or something. To me, what hit the tune was that it was someone that might be anyone here sitting listening to it. Who knows?
There could be an alien in this room.
Yeah, well, if we'd have great fun watching people that are just made up, that we understand that they're not human,
Yeah.
It's better to have someone that's human that we can't understand that they're not human.
I don't know if I get that last bit. Are there any aliens in? Have we got any more questions? That's.
Can you hear me?
No. Sorry. I mean, I can vaguely go on. Just shout a bit.
I was just going to ask about the soundtrack, because I've seen the film 5 or 6 times before, and I found myself focusing more on the soundtrack. And I just wondered whether you had the soundtrack in mind when you filmed it, or whether that was all decided after the filming.
I can't hear.
Wondering about the soundtrack. I know that the soundtrack of the film was never released, was it? Did you have music in mind, or did you add all the music afterwards?
Had it in mind and not in mind, because which is a thing that, oddly enough, might help to understand what I was last talking about. But one of the things that excited the producers or the financiers was that David Bowie was going to be in it, And one of the things that he that it was never finally done by contract that you will do the music, but it was gradually accepted that he would do the music for the film, which I wasn't very fond of the idea.
Really? Why is that?
Well, you know, it would have been very difficult for him to. Problem he'd be able to do it in his, I mean, not the capability, but very difficult for an audience not to latch on to his singing performance, because that's what they would be. That's why the financiers wanted it, because they'd go. A lot would turn up with the cinema that were great Bowie fans. He just was reaching that point of he was going to go on into, and without saying anything. But as we got further into the movie, I think it was about 2/3 into it. Somehow, in a conversation David and I were having, it became obvious to me that he didn't want to. I only had to realize, it wasn't said, nothing was said, but I had to realize the conversation was wiggling around it. I'm not sure that I'd like to make, if you have a chat about that sometime, you know, that sort of attitude. And I think it was, I thought, thank God for that, because it would have been, people would have been going to see it for a different reason.
Yeah.
You know, and which would have been very nice, but it would have been then diminishing the storyline, the attitude and the premise of the piece would have been beaten. And when it came to near the end, he just said, I think it would hurt it. He liked the idea of John Phillips, and be using what's called scratch tracks, you know, that attitudes, and at that time, the Mamas and the Poppers were, you know, pretty popular, you know. But he was quite brilliant, John Phillips. He was an extraordinary man and musician, and David liked him, and liked the idea of him, and so. But it was a whole thing about the soundtrack, you know, that I think was right, that it would have denied his performance was better without anyone thinking that's David Bowie. You know, the whole idea of a performance is that it's another person, you know.
Yeah, but it's quite strange actually, that, isn't it? Because then he went on to use images from the film for like his next two albums. There's an image from the film on his album Station to Station. Come on, Bowie fans, help me here. That's right, isn't it? There's a picture from the film on Station to Station, and Low as well. That's a still of him in
That's a reverse order, though. You know, that's okay.
Oh yeah, I'm just saying, but it's like obviously he, I guess. Liked the film and was kind of, it obviously made an impression on him that he then used images from it in his for his next two sleeves. Yeah, I know that was after the event.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Okay, Eddie, have we got any other questions? Anybody else with a question? Here we have got someone over here.
Hi. Your films contain a lot of flourishes throughout them, like stylistic flourishes. How much do you plan beforehand, and how much do you make up on the day?
On the first day of the film, when all the script has been gone into and people have read it, and we've worked on the script and given it to the artist that one wants to use, and they've looked at their parts and things. But at first, some years ago, I knew I had to disguise it, to disguise what my intentions were. And once the film starts, once the filming of the film starts, I'm not going to turn to, I like the idea of accident or something, a way of setting something that I hadn't thought that's the way it's going to be like that. And I like the idea of chance we're all living in, you know, we can't know what the future is. And so it is, our lives, all our lives are dictated by chance as well. You know, we just bump into each other. We've decided to split up. A couple decided to split up, and in the script it says they're on the beach, and it's bright sunny day in like Hollywood somewhere, and it's a beautiful. And after they've talked for a while, they get up and the beach is full because it's such a beautiful sunset, and they wander, and we see then the girl wandering off, and a tear comes down.
Sounds good. I like this.
And when you arrive at the location, it's pouring with rain, and the production manager says, "We can change this scene, Nick. You never want to go inside. We've got the other scene that we're going to do, the cover scene." I tend to say that's the message, is that it's raining, and instead of her walking off where other people are just playing with balls and on the beach, and that, it's a very good thing on the page, but with this is to not shoot what has happened in reality, and that's it's pouring with rain, and that's chance, isn't it? That they plan, you know, maybe either she or he had planned to make the split in a sunny day, you know. That tells a different attitude in life. And rising to pouring with rain, was that fate that then is that, was she crying, or was it just the rain in her face as she walked? You know, I like that state of chance about scenes, you know, that something drops on the floor and it rolls out, and there's a reason for everything. I'm not saying looking for a different thing, but something that suddenly might strike you the film has made that decision much more than.
So you like to set up a situation.
Yeah.
So you've got a script, but you're very open to things happening on the day that you couldn't have foreseen.
Exactly.
Try and bring them in somehow. Can you remember any particular examples from that film? I know it's a long time ago. But.
No, not. I'd have to have notice of that question, and maybe
All right.
Maybe in a week or two.
Anybody else got a question?
I was wondering, when working on the script, have there ever been any consideration of Bowie's character interacting with an animal, which obviously works on a much more energetic level?
Sorry. Hold on, no, because I'm not sure whether I heard your question right. So when working and...
When he was working on the script, if there had ever been any consideration of Bowie's character interacting with an animal, which obviously works on a much more energetic level?
What?
Interacting with an animal.
It's the idea that he's an alien and he's dealing with energy. And it was just if he ever interacted, if there was going to be a consideration. I was just wondering.
I have to see you later, I think. Quite.
Let me see. That's thrown me, that one. Sorry. I made some notes while I was watching, actually. Unfortunately, I did them whilst I was watching the film, and it's just some scribble. I'm going to ask a question that, in a way, I hope you're not going to take this as being very facetious, but because I remember seeing this film on TV when I was younger, And so as I was coming here on the in a taxi today to see it again, I was trying to, you go through your mind and try and remember what you remember about the film. And I remembered the bit with the gun and when they're playing with the gun and stuff like that. And then for some reason, and I apologise, I remember that when he reveals himself to Mary Lou, she wets herself. Now, it stuck in my mind, and I wonder why, because it's something that you don't see in the film. People are scared and they kind of freak out, but you don't get people wetting themselves. No, but it's true, isn't it? But no, and I know that people do if they're very scared, and I wonder if you remember why that was a thing that you wanted to have in the film.
Well, I mean, it's a fact that the bladder can, in shock, shrink and then you wet yourself.
Oh, I know.
That's what people. It sounds mad, but during the Second World War, with fighter pilots, often found that they, after combat or something, had wet themselves with fear, and the whole body is reacting. And I wanted to have that. She loved him. And they were learning to love each other. That's again reflected a human attitude, because he couldn't explain to her that he's married. It would be, actually it was something that made him human, the deceit of because he couldn't reveal himself as what he was. And it was. And when she wet herself, he was taking his eye out, to show that that's what his eye looked like. That's what she wet herself. Who is this? And I thought they played it brilliantly, that she, afterwards, in the dream then, he remembered that in his wakeful dream, of how his wife was on another planet, that their behavior pattern of rolling around in the sky, I don't know, that, and their relationship changed then, but she still loved him, and it didn't matter, Tommy, and
yeah, I think that's a very touching scene, and then she tries to kind of
tries to understand,
tries to be with him, but that she can't help but be kind of repelled by him. The difference of him, it's kind of, she does try.
That has a human factor to it, doesn't it? That's, whether like it or not, it doesn't. It also showed her, gave his shot, the shot that she was shocked at. She was more than just that was a reality thing. That was a total. I don't know. I haven't had one of those. Thank goodness, I haven't had one of those shocks. But I'm sure that people, they're not that unusual, are they? But to have that's the reason for it. But someone objecting to the being.
No.
I thought it worked well, because it had a physicality, a human physicality, that was definitely, because it wasn't in control of something, when you have no control over anything. But it's odd that you'd ask that question, because things came up when I said when we started shooting the film, I wanted it to be, the situation was in control, not me saying, we'll pretend it's sunlight, because that's what I thought of that. And that applied, oddly enough, to, I was strict with the thing that I didn't want any time spoken about in the film. Nothing about, And Tommy, when we were cutting it, the editor was going through the sequence with Rip Torn in it, I remember, and I said, wait a minute, play that again on the movie, and it was, I've been here 3 months already. God damn it! It's just,
Yeah.
that means that all the way through my thought, that one line, I'd accepted it. It was so acceptable because it wasn't unusual. And I said, I can't believe that got by, but it isn't in the movie because we cut it out. But even, our behavior pattern is pretty very difficult to pretend you're something you're not. That's why Bowie, I thought, was very good. He wasn't, except the giveaway was his voice and his attitude, not just limping, but you couldn't tell where he was from, England, America. They'd chosen the planet when it was exploration. They had more, we imagined, had more understanding of what human beings. They spoke a language, and they were taught a language, and that also is true of life, isn't it? That a language learned in adulthood is usually very recognizable by a native of the country, whether it's in highfalutin, academic way, but the actual pronunciation and attitude so far until it is.
Because it's not like you've been brought to that language.
No, exactly. You know what the manners are, but you don't know exactly what will ring as amusing or, dangerous.
Any other questions? I'm looking.
Not a question.
Okay. Javier? Go on then.
I just wanted to mention the sex scenes, because they're very different from the kind of sex scenes we get these days. They're very much more naturalistic, less contrived. I just wondered what his opinion of it was, and whether he thinks it's changed a lot today, the depiction of sex on film.
What's the
Sex scene.
what?
Talking about the fact that the sex scene seemed very... sorry, what was your... Naturalistic.
Less contrived than they are today.
Thank you. I like that because I wanted to make them sort of erotic without, and that's the first door of friendship, isn't it? Right?
But not always.
Well, sometimes you keep the door shut, but I'm talking about a door that's just on the way to open.
All right, okay.
Follow my reasoning, not the shut one. Anyway, people do. It's funny you should say that about because there was something another movie I made where I won't go into it now, but where there was a loving scene between two people who had been married a long time, and that's came as quite shocking for the producers to see a slightly erotic scene between a middle-aged couple who had been married for 15 years, and that made up they still had erotic sex together, but didn't have until this situation where they fell back in love with each other. But it had a certain truth to it. It had a sense of truth to it that I was also asked. They said, of course, you can't show. We'll have to cut something of your love scene because we can't show any genitalia at all. I said, there isn't any. He said, no, I mean in the love scene, there's a shot when she first lies down, and the producer of the film said to me, do something, Nick, because he's now committed himself to the censor.
So you were seeing more in the scene that was actually there.
Yeah, I thought that was really flattering. But it was flattering for the actors because they weren't. But their attitude was very love. It was a lover, not just the. And that is different. It is different between a couple that have been lovers, whatever that is, for some time, years. There's different. Usually, the love scene is an early love affair, isn't it? That's the usual love scene in a movie, but the love scene is very important. It
Yeah, I
tells
think,
another
and it's
story.
interesting. And I mean, in this film, the love scenes move the story on as well. Like when you see Rip Torn basically have the same sex with two different women on the different occasions, kind of
the
tells you a lot about his character.
And the attitude, yeah, absolutely.
We're going to finish on a sexy note, or
Hello? Yeah. Is there a tone of anti-corporatism in the movie? Don't know, just a very subtle one.
that's a good point actually, because it is a kind of a corporate tale, isn't it? How it seems that the kind of the powers that be or other corporations are jealous of Newton's corporation and kind of they want to kind of somehow get in on the action, or they've got to cut him down to size.
Absolutely. No, I think that's a very nice question, because there's a lot of subtlety in most scenes in film and in literature and in theatre. You know, it's very tempting, and it's usually quite a successful thing with something rather subtle but you could see that they loved each other. You knew that they loved each other by the way they reacted the same way about it. Someone telling a joke at a party or something, or for it. You know that an elderly couple. I saw an elderly couple in a pub some years ago, and they were regulars. And they came in, and as a couple sat down, and they got a beer or whatever, and they said nothing much to each other, but people were being a bit weird, or they'd look at each other like that, and they were exchanging their emotions and feelings. They weren't trying to chat each other up. It was fascinating. I thought I was curious that this could come up, because I thought that it's an extension of the thing of the genitalia. People know that fact as I'm telling you this story, that this couple nodded, and then the wife went oh, and the husband nodded, and they were talking to each other without using any language. It was the language of their experience and their life that they were exchanging with each other. And I'm glad I'm with you, and I'm glad I'm with you, dear. That's I think that it's hardly used as a scene. It's hardly. And I like. A lot has been spoken in the past and about the love scene and the love. But it's our life, it's a life scene. It's not whether they don't only, in Don't Look Now, a film made with, there's a scene in that is repairing a relationship and a life. They'd lost a child. Probably the worst thing that can happen in your life, and where everything freezes up and you don't want to have anything to do with anybody, and gradually there's this moment when they make love again, and then go to dinner, but that we're all human, and you know that somewhere there's a hope. And we're talking about another film, but at the end of that particular film, when there's a funeral barge. It all takes place in Venice, and there's a funeral barge. And Julie Christie was in it, and there were two women that played friends that they'd made in Venice. They were older women, and one was crying, and one was a terrible thing, which was beautiful. They were perfect for it. But the mother, Julie Christie played the mother, and she'd started off with a veil in front of a black veil, and beautiful thing. She looked beautiful. And I thought it'd be a shame. Try it. You've got to try it without the veil. And you're like Queen Christine at the masthead. And there's something of the smile of undefeated about it. And I think she was marvelous, Julie, because it was beyond tearful and beyond emotionally struck down. I'm not defeated, and neither are we. Even a thought of the husband, they were lovers, they were in love. And oddly enough, I'm making this point because of the answer to that, we took the love scene out, it completely changed the automatic reaction of people that saw it. Without telling them what had happened, you say, there's something missing. I just feel there's something missing from there. And I thought it was terrific, but it didn't rely on a tear, but their association was, we'd seen the love, and it was, we'd seen it, that it was genuine, and they repaired, the husband was trying to repair the pain. Anyway.
Have we any more questions? Should we go and drink some mulled wine, do you think? Well, I'd like to thank you all for being here, and a very great thank you. It's been a privilege speaking to you, Nick. Thank you.